Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the heavy, suffocating kind that makes your chest tighten before you even know why. A single audio file sat on the screen. Unreleased. Untitled. Unknown. And the name attached to it. Yu Menglong. What happened next would send shockwaves through fans across the world, and in today's video, you're about to discover why this mysterious song is being called his most emotional message ever. We're diving deep into the hidden story behind the track, the chilling timing surrounding September 11th, 2025 rumors, and the moments in the recording that have listeners convinced there was far more going on behind the scenes than anyone realized. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the end, because the final seconds of this story changed how fans see everything. Because sometimes, the loudest truth is hidden inside the quietest song. It began, as many internet mysteries do, with a leak that nobody expected. Late one evening, a small fan forum lit up with whispers. A user claiming to have connections to a former studio engineer posted something unusual, a short audio snippet allegedly recorded by Yu Menglong months earlier but never officially released. At first, people ignored it. After all, the internet is full of fake leaks and recycled rumors. But then more details started surfacing. The voice in the clip sounded unmistakably like Yu Menglong, soft, controlled, but carrying a weight that longtime fans immediately recognized. The melody was simple, almost haunting. No heavy production. No dramatic instrumentals. Just piano. And a voice that sounded different. Not weaker. Not broken. But deeply reflective, like someone standing at the edge of a life chapter they knew was about to close. Within hours, fan communities exploded. Clips were shared. Lyrics were analyzed. Even casual listeners admitted there was something unusually raw about the recording. Unlike his polished commercial tracks, this one felt intimate, almost like a personal diary set to music. And that's when the timeline started raising eyebrows. According to the anonymous source, the song had been recorded privately and never submitted to his management. No promotional schedule. No official announcement. No planned release date. It was never meant to be heard. Which immediately sparked the question that sent chills through the fandom. Why keep something this powerful hidden? As the audio spread, listeners began noticing small details that made the situation even more intriguing. The recording quality wasn't studio perfect. You could hear faint room noise, a slight chair movement, even what sounded like a quiet exhale between lines. This wasn't a commercial session. This was personal. Deeply personal. Some fans described the song as sounding like a goodbye letter in melody form. Others pushed back, saying people were reading too much into it. But one thing everyone agreed on was this. The emotional weight in his voice was impossible to ignore. Then came the moment that truly sent speculation into overdrive. A fan with audio editing experience isolated the final seconds of the leaked clip, and what they found wasn't dramatic, but it was unsettling enough to spark endless debate. At the very end of the recording, after the music faded, Yu Menglong's voice could be heard softly speaking, almost like he thought the recording had already stopped. The words were quiet, nearly lost in the background. But once fans enhanced the audio, theories exploded across social media. Was it just a casual studio remark? Or something more meaningful? No official transcript was ever confirmed, but the ambiguity alone was enough to ignite weeks of discussion. And then the date rumors began circulating. September 11th, 2025. Across multiple fan spaces, the date started appearing in speculative threads, not as confirmed news, but as part of a growing wave of online storytelling and rumor building that often surrounds beloved celebrities. It's important to be clear, there has been no verified public confirmation of any tragic event tied to Yu Menglong on that date. But in the world of online fandoms, perception can move faster than facts. And perception was spreading like wildfire. Fans began revisiting old interviews, searching for hidden meanings. They replayed past performances. They analyzed his social media posts line by line, frame by frame. What they found wasn't scandalous. It was human. Moments of quiet reflection. Posts that now felt more emotional in hindsight. Performances where his expressions seemed just a little more intense than viewers originally noticed. None of it proved anything. But together, it created an atmosphere of mystery that the internet couldn't resist. Meanwhile, music analysts started weighing in on the unreleased track itself. One producer noted that the chord progression suggested intentional minimalism, a style often used when artists want lyrics and emotion to take center stage. Another pointed out the vocal delivery was unusually restrained, almost as if Yu Menglong was deliberately holding back intensity rather than pushing for dramatic effect. In other words, the song didn't sound like it was meant to impress. It sounded like it was meant to express. And that distinction mattered. Because for many fans, this wasn't just another unreleased track. It felt like a window into a private moment the public was never supposed to see. As days passed, the emotional impact only grew stronger. Fan edits flooded video platforms. Reaction videos appeared overnight. Some listeners admitted the song gave them chills the first time they heard it, not because it was sad, but because it felt unusually sincere. In an industry known for heavy production and polished images, raw honesty can hit differently. Very differently. Still, questions remained unanswered. Who leaked the file? Why now? And perhaps most importantly, why was the track never officially released if it was clearly complete enough to share? No confirmed insider has publicly explained the situation. And that silence has only fueled the intrigue. What makes this story even more fascinating is how divided the audience has become. Some fans believe the song is simply an unreleased demo that gained accidental attention. Others are convinced there's a deeper story behind why it stayed hidden for so long. Both sides agree on one thing, though. The emotional impact of the track is undeniable. Even casual listeners who weren't longtime followers of Yu Menglong admitted the recording carried a unique atmosphere, the kind that makes you stop whatever you're doing and listen all the way through. Not because it's loud, but because it's honest. And sometimes, honesty hits harder than any dramatic production ever could. As the mystery continues to swirl online, one truth stands out clearly above the noise. This unreleased song has reignited global attention around Yu Menglong in a way no one predicted. Whether you see it as a beautiful hidden gem, an emotional time capsule, or simply an unfinished piece of music history, one thing is certain. People are still listening, still analyzing, still asking questions. And maybe that's the real power of moments like this, the way they remind us that behind every polished public figure is a real human being with quiet thoughts, private recordings, and stories we may never fully know. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think this unreleased song was meant to stay private? Or do you believe it was always destined to be heard by the world? What did you personally feel the first time you listened to the clip? And do you think fans are reading too much into the mystery, or not enough? The audio didn't just circulate, it lingered. Days after the first leak, the unreleased song from Yu Menglong refused to fade into the usual internet noise. Instead of dying down like most celebrity rumors, it did the opposite. The more people listened, the more questions surfaced. The more questions surfaced, the deeper the mystery pulled everyone in. What made part one of this saga so gripping wasn't just the existence of the song. It was the feeling. Fans kept repeating the same thing in different words. Something about this track feels unfinished emotionally, but intentional musically. And that contradiction, that's what kept everyone awake at night. Because when listeners returned to the beginning of the recording, really returned, with headphones on and distractions off, new details began revealing themselves like shadows in low light. The piano intro. Soft. Measured. Almost hesitant. It didn't rush into the melody the way commercial tracks usually do. Instead, each note landed carefully, like footsteps in a quiet hallway. Music analysts later pointed out something subtle but powerful. The spacing between the notes was unusually wide. That space matters. In music psychology, wider gaps between notes often create tension and anticipation. It makes the listener lean in closer without even realizing why. And Yu Menglong's Unreleased track used that technique masterfully. But here's where part one became truly fascinating. When fans slowed the audio down slightly, not enough to distort it, just enough to study it, they noticed a tiny breath before the first lyric began. Not dramatic. Not staged. Human. It sounded like someone steadying themselves. That single breath sparked hours of debate across fan communities. Was it just normal recording behavior? Or was it the kind of subconscious moment that slips through when an artist is emotionally invested in what they're about to say? No official answer ever came. But the speculation only deepened the emotional pull of the song. Then came the vocal entry, the moment that many listeners now call the most haunting part of Part 1. Yu Menglong didn't power into the melody. He eased into it. His voice sat lower than usual, softer around the edges, almost like he was deliberately avoiding the polished brightness fans were used to hearing. Vocal coaches who later analyzed the clip noted something interesting. The delivery carried controlled restraint. In simple terms, it sounded like someone holding emotion back rather than pushing it forward. And that choice changes everything. Because when a singer holds back instead of belting out, the listener's brain fills in the emotional gaps. It creates intimacy, the feeling that you're overhearing something private rather than being performed to. That's exactly what made Part 1 so addictive to listeners. It didn't feel like a performance. It felt like a moment. As the first verse unfolded, another subtle detail emerged, one that casual listeners almost missed. There were no heavy background layers. No dramatic strings swelling underneath. No echo-drenched production tricks. Just piano and voice. Industry insiders know that stripping production down this far is rarely accidental. It's usually a deliberate artistic decision when the emotional message is meant to carry the full weight. Which brings us to the lyric tone itself. While no official full transcript has been confirmed, fans who studied the clearest versions of the leak agreed on one thing. The wording leaned heavily into reflection, distance, and quiet acceptance rather than heartbreak or anger. That emotional direction matters more than most people realize. Because songs built around reflection tend to age differently than songs built around raw pain. Reflection feels like looking back. Like processing. Like someone standing at a crossroads they've already accepted. And that's exactly the atmosphere Part 1 created. Not panic. Not despair. Stillness. The kind of stillness that makes listeners pause mid-scroll and replay the track without even meaning to. By the second listen, many fans reported noticing something else, the pacing. Yu Menglong didn't rush any lines. Even in moments where the melody allowed for quicker phrasing, he stretched certain syllables just slightly longer than expected. It's a small technical choice. But emotionally, it changes the entire listening experience. Because stretching syllables subtly slows the listener's breathing pattern. It literally pulls the audience into the rhythm of the performer. That's why so many first-time listeners described feeling unexpectedly calm or strangely heavy after hearing the clip. The song wasn't just being heard. It was being felt physically. Then came the midpoint of Part 1, the section fans now call the quiet drop. Unlike typical song structures where the midpoint builds toward a dramatic chorus, this track did something unusual. The piano softened even further, almost retreating into the background for a few seconds. And in that space, Yu Menglong's voice became almost conversational. Barely above a whisper in tone, but still controlled. Music producers who later reviewed the clip noted that this section sounded less like a performance and more like what artists sometimes record during private demo sessions, moments where the emotional delivery matters more than vocal power. That observation only fueled the growing belief that the song may never have been intended for full commercial release. Because commercially, the track breaks several mainstream patterns. Emotionally, however, it hits with surgical precision. By the time Part 1 approached its closing moments, listeners were already fully pulled into the atmosphere. And that's when the now famous final seconds began. The piano didn't end with a dramatic flourish. It faded. Slowly. Almost reluctantly. Yu Menglong's final vocal line followed the same pattern, not ending sharply, but dissolving gently into the background like a thought trailing off mid-sentence. And then, that pause. Roughly 2 seconds of near silence that has now been replayed millions of times across fan edits and analysis videos. Because in those final moments, listeners swear they can hear the faintest shift, a subtle movement, possibly the artist adjusting position after the take. It's not loud. It's not clear. But it's there. And for fans deeply invested in the mystery of this unreleased track, That tiny human moment made the entire recording feel even more personal, and even more haunting. What Part 1 ultimately delivered wasn't shock value. It delivered atmosphere. The kind that lingers long after the audio stops playing. The kind that makes people return for a second listen, then a third, then a fourth, each time convinced they're catching something new hidden between the notes. And maybe that's why this unreleased song continues to hold the internet in such a tight grip. Not because of what is clearly heard, but because of what is only barely felt. Now it's your turn to weigh in. When you listened closely to Part 1, what stood out to you the most, the piano spacing, the restrained vocals, or those chilling final seconds? Do you think this track was meant to stay private, or do you believe it was quietly preparing for a future release? And most importantly, did the song give you chills the first time you heard it, or do you think fans are reading too deeply into the emotion? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. I'm genuinely curious to hear your take. If this deep dive pulled you in, don't forget to like the video, share it with other fans who love uncovering hidden details, and subscribe to the channel for more mysterious stories and emotional breakdowns you won't find anywhere else. Your comment might be the one that sparks the next big discovery.